Thank you. I'm not supposed to be up here, so I'm just going to introduce myself and pass the mic to Matt. My name is Brett Razzik, and I'm the planning supervisor for the County Economic Development Office. And welcome to our first One Stop Ready academy class. I'd like to introduce my boss, Deputy Executive Matt Gibb, and Matt, along with Brooks, are the two that conceived of this program. We're our second year, and Matt's going to have a talk. Thank you.
Thanks, Brett. So we win awards all the time as the most technically advanced county in America. I can guarantee you this mic's going to break in about 3 minutes and we'll be able to see things. But so bear with us. They want us to use the mic because we record these things. And so your colleagues that chose to enjoy this 70 in sunshine, which makes me question all of your judgment, as you're here instead, maybe they can watch this time. And people do. So bear with me if we use the mic, if we don't use the mic. Going forward. So first and foremost, welcome on behalf of Brooks and Oakland County to get over to the executive offices. If you've not been here, we host a lot of events here in this conference center, and it's available to any of your communities as well. Brooks' office is up on the 5th floor, but you need a card to get up there, so find Dan Hunter, and he'll swipe you up whenever you come back and visit. You can stop and say hello. I'm really pleased that Waterford slept through last year's session, so they came back this year. So it's good to see you, Gary. Everybody from Waterford, it's nice. We have had some communities that went through the program last year that have asked if they come back and listen again, and some new information that we have this year as well. It really shows that we think that this program is gaining some traction and gaining some strength. Some good Pontiac friends are here. Dave, how are you? Going forward. So tonight is an introduction to the program. So your councils and some of the staff people that have been privy to this, we came and presented to the township boards or to the city councils. But not all of you have learned what One Stop Ready is all about. We talked a little bit about out in the communities. We're going to walk you through the program. It's interactive. There's clickers on your table. You're going to be asked to answer some questions. If I call on you and pick on you and you don't feel like answering, then too bad for you. You're going to have to answer anyway. As Gary will tell you, we think this is a lot better when it's interactive and when we're having some good dialogue and some jokes amongst each other. So let's get to it and talk a little bit about the program. One Stop Ready. As you can see, we've already set the dates. A lot of you have already RSVP'd for the next academy classes. The program is structured real simply. You come 4 times, and then it's up to you as communities on what you do with the information that we are sharing. Really, this is just sharing ideas, sharing information. So these are the 4 key classes tonight, of course, is about the program and the economic context and vision. So here's how the program got started. 2 years ago, we said, you know what, we need to combat in Oakland County the fact that we have 61 municipal governments that are all doing economic development for the visioning for their communities in different ways. And we need to give them some tools that they can use. And so we said, well, let's develop a pilot, call it One Stop Ready, because we have the one-stop shops. Who's been to the one-stop shop before? All right, a few of you have. The one-stop shop, which is on this floor but on the other side of the building, is established about 21 years ago, Brooks Patterson, and it's the one place where you can get everything you need from a business perspective. You need GIS data, you need mapping, you need services. Our business center is over there as well. Now, last year we helped about 3,000 small businesses go through that center with all things like financial planning and marketing strategies and business plans. Eric Phillips is one of our counselors. He's ugly, but he's good at what he does. And we help all of those things. So we said, well, the one-stop shop provides that for business. Let's call this One Stop Ready so that communities can provide that same mentality. Get everything you need. Get your questions. Get your information. One stop. Customer service friendly. So we started it as a pilot. And we went to these 5 communities that we thought was a pretty good diverse section of our communities. And we started off by saying, well, here's like the 32 things that you're going to have to do to be One Stop Ready. And they all laughed at us and told us how dumb we were and decided they didn't want to be part of that. But they worked with us. And so we worked that year trying to define, well, what would a one-stop ready community really look like if we're going to do something like this? And they helped us define the program. Went into last year, we invited 7 communities in, listed there. The Oxfords did this together. Pontiac is just a great story about one-stop ready. Waterford, I'll make fun of them tonight. So we had 7 communities join the program, and they went through these academy sessions just like you're going through. And the room was about this full. And the more academy sessions went along, the more people came, because word got out that, well, this isn't bad. There are actually some pretty cool ideas that other communities are doing. And then this year, we've got all of you that have joined us as well, 7 more communities. The goal is to do this for 5 consecutive years. If we can get 35 of our 61 communities that all have a practice of sharing great ideas amongst each other, what are the best practices, and going forth with the economic vision of your community, then we really got something going, as we'll get into it tonight. So at the bottom of this, you can't read it. A community-focused economic development program built on blah, blah, blah. So we had them blow it up for you. This is what this program is all about. Looks like a lawyer wrote it, but I didn't write it, even though I'm a lawyer. Here's what's the key for tonight. This program is based on self-evaluation. If you can't look at yourself in the mirror and say, here's what we do really good, and I want to share that because it's super cool. And here's what we suck at, and I don't want to share that, but I want to get better at it. And I'll apologize ahead of time. My staff will tell you occasionally a bad word comes out of my mouth, so I'll try tonight not to do that. If you can't self-evaluate, then you're in the wrong place, but you're also in the wrong business. Because all of you are leaders of your communities, and as a leader, you need to be doing some self-evaluation, good and bad. It's about information sharing. If you can't say, gosh, in Auburn Hills, they run some pretty darn good pre-app meetings, and say to yourself, listen, I'm at least willing to listen to that, to find out if I can take some of that stuff that they're doing, make it my own in my own community. If you can't share what you're doing best because you think, you know what, it only happens in Troy, we got the best permitting system around, we're not going to share that, and shame on you. This program is about evaluating what's good and what's bad, and sharing it with your peers so that everybody gets better here in Oakland County. Outstanding customer service. We had a debate internally, should it say timely customer service. We built this program on a new incentive in economic development. So there's no more big tax credit incentives. The personal property tax to do big maintenance and things is going away if they voted in August, and the polling is that that's going to go away. The government doesn't really give out big swaths of money, although you can go to the strategic fund and get some grants and things. So what is the incentive? In our office, we say the new incentive is time. Time is the incentive. You can get the $1 million from Ohio because they're still giving out money, but it still takes you 14 to 18 months to get through the process. If we can beat them in time, we can beat them in customer service. We don't have to give them $1 million. There's a profit margin. We'll make up for that in the time. The new incentive is time. So we built the program on that whole premise. Work as partners, capitalize on your strengths. You're going to hear a presentation after Dan and I get done that talks about your role as an economic developer. That's what this program is all about. What is your role? Refine your processes, implement a local vision. This is your role as an economic developer. For your community, think like an investor. If you were the one that is writing the check for your community, what are the issues that you would be thinking about standing at the counter? Standing in front of that city council or that township board or the ZBA. If you're an economic developer for your community, you're thinking like that. Why is this person writing a check to me? Why are they paying me to do this for them? But if you're thinking that I'm here to protect old Ben Johnson's fence on his farm, then you're not an economic developer for your community. You're just not. And so part of this program, self-evaluation for me too. So I'll say things like that. I'm not picking on anybody, but the idea is to get you thinking differently. Think like an investor. Tonight we're going to talk about how do they perceive the community. How are you perceived? When someone talks about Troy or talks about Royal Oak or these communities, these great communities that are here, Waterford here, how do they perceive you? It doesn't matter how you perceive yourself, because you're not writing checks. That is how you're perceived. So they perceive you as agile, fast, responsive. Do they say when I go in there, I get everything I need? They're calling me back on stuff that I missed, or do they perceive you as, oh man, they're a pain in the ass. I don't want to go to that community. If I got to go there, I'm going to charge you more money. Consultant, developer, how do they perceive you? Why have they chosen this location? You know, Oxford's a great story. I gave this presentation many times at Oxford about 3 years ago. And I asked Oxford, I said, well, how are you going to distinguish yourself? Why are they going to choose you to locate a business in Oxford, Michigan? You know what they told me? They said, because we have a cute downtown. I thought they were joking. No, they meant it. I think we have a cute downtown. Oxford is a very cool downtown. There's some great bars there, some restaurants. They've got a saddle shop. If you're in a horse, been there for 50 years, I bet. It's a cute downtown. I said, well, that's great, because if a business comes here from Toledo and wants to open a really cool store, and they're looking for the cutest downtown, I'm sure they're going to bypass Milford and Rochester and Ferndale and Royal Oak and all the other cute downtowns that we have in Oakland County. They said, well, why are you being such a jerk? I mean, that's really what they do. They say, you have to think differently. What are their deadlines? Think like an investor. So tonight we're going to start getting you to think differently, not to do anything. The premise of this program isn't for us to tell you what to do. We don't tell you what to do. We can care less what you do, really. We hope that you start thinking in a way that allows you to be economic developers for your community. This is what you have to do. You already have done a lot of it in your communities. Pass a supporting resolution. We make your leadership pass a resolution for one reason. If all of you come here and listen to these and you interact and you press the buttons and you answer the questions and I pick on you later, make you talk about your community, if your leadership hasn't said, darn it, we're in this program, and those people that didn't come tonight will say, well, yeah, those are all nice people, but I don't have to listen to that stuff. Your community has to be in. Your board, your council has to pass a resolution. You have to designate a liaison to be in the program. We're going to get to that as this program goes forward. You have to display the poster. So we've got these cool posters. So the whole idea is that marketing. It is marketing, really. It's not a poster. It's more marketing. Now what we're going to do with these posters eventually for all your communities, and we have to play catch up with our own communities because we've been a little slow on our feet, is we want all of you to sign the poster. So Gary, why do we sign a poster?
To commit, we're all in. You're all in,
right?
Yep.
And everybody has to sign a poster, right?
Yep.
Even those curmudgeons in your community, right? Because everybody has them, right?
As long as they can write, they can sign.
They can write, they can sign. All right? So we have everybody sign the poster. At some point in this process, you're going to have to sign the poster. Here's why. Is we want you, much like Pontiac did when they started this program last year. Pontiac's a great story. So they had a very controversial project that was very undecided, had to do with garbage, and there's like only one project in the world that can make the community run higher than garbage, right? Had to do with that, and it was about site decisions, what they were going to do with the best for their community. And usually in Pontiac, Pontiac friends, usually a community like Pontiac would take that very complex, very hard decision, and they would just punt, hope they go away eventually. Let's table this for 60 days because we need to think about it, we need more information. But no, they said, no. We're in that one-stop ready program. We got time tonight. Let's figure this out. And they dove into the questions, and a few hours later, they had it all figured out. Because they made a commitment, because they signed a poster. And when that person on the board says, I'm not buying into that garbage and that nonsense, I want all of you to sign the poster to be able to say, sign the damn poster. Let's do the work. That's all. So it seems nonsensical, but it works. Continuous improvement. You're here at the First Academy. After we do the academy, we're working with your communities on different tools and strategies that are out there to make you better, make you stronger. Marketing, and then we've got a forum that you're going to learn about as this goes forward. So really the program components are pretty simple. Here's 5 things that are the only 5 things we're going to ask you to do. Notice I say ask you to do. Now if you want to have our big support for marketing and say that you're a development ready, a one-stop ready community, all that, you got to do these 5 things. And you're going to learn about them in the 4 academy sessions and then we work with your community. Pre-application meetings. I think all of you in this room do that. We're going to make sure you do that. If you don't do pre-application meetings, you miss probably 70% of the economic opportunities that might come to your door. You have to do pre-application meetings. You have to put your stuff online. Now, most people say we do, but we help audit some of that because I love to tell some of the stories I used to be in my law practice. And I still tell them now. Let me get this straight. So you want a company from Japan to locate in your community, but they can only get the information in the ordinance and the applications if they come into the clerk's office. Some communities have said, yeah, what's wrong with that? I says, you want somebody to get on a plane from Japan and fly here, and they don't have any public transportation, so figure out how to drive to your community so you can talk to the clerk for 5 minutes? And Don said, well, there's got to be a better way. Yeah, put all your stuff online so they can get it. Everything online. Your master plans, your ordinance, your vision, everything. Project tracking. You have to have proactive project tracking. And that doesn't mean that you put it in your BS&A software and, yeah, we issue a permit on Tuesday. That means that your liaison and somebody in your system or some system in your shop says, we're tracking what's going on. Now, the reason this is important is you don't want to get blamed for it. And how's the easiest way to get blamed? Have a developer miss a deadline to submit a plan to the planning commission. Even though it's his fault, who does he blame? Tammy, who's he blame? He blames Tammy. He doesn't. I would blame Tammy. So, project tracking. And we're going to talk in the sessions about what that means. When we get to a later academy session about management tactics, best practices, we're going to focus on that. Business and community input. If you don't listen to your businesses, shame on you. Because they pay more taxes than the city council. They just do. So you have to listen to your business community. Brooks has had a business roundtable for 20 years. We've implemented 80% of the recommendations from the business roundtable. And we have the AAA rating longer than any county in America. And Standard & Poor's calls us the best financed and managed county in America. We get that because, what? Because we listen to our business community. Clear and efficient permitting processes. What the great thing is about programs like this is we bring communities in here that have great strengths. So I look at my friends from Troy over here. What they've done to transform their permitting process is profound. And so as we get into these processes, I'm going to make Mark and some of the others talk about. I won't let Glenn, as he talks about it. But we're going to talk a little bit about some of that stuff. So those are the 5 things. That's all we're going to do. We're in this together. A rising tide lifts all boats. But here's the input. So why would 7 communities this year and 7 communities last year need to get these common traits? Why do you need to even think that? I'm cool. If I'm Oxford, I got cute downtown. That's cool. You know, if I'm Troy, I got 16 mile Big Beaver. That's cool. That's cool. Why do we have to do this? We're all in this together. Here's the population. Each dot is 1,000 people. I don't think it's all located in Oxford. Must not be.
Amen.
Here, oh, yeah.
You're a dot in Willie St. Clair?
Parsons Island.
That's what I am.
Parsons Island. Parsons Island. So that's where everybody lives. Pretty much all over the place. Here's where everybody lives and works. There's a lot of people in this area down here, all went away for some reason, so they must not work much down there. Up in Oakland, where you all are, a lot of people working. Every dot's 1,000 people. That's our workforce. That's people between 18 and 64 that have the ability to work. Here's where the jobs are. They're pretty much all over the place. But now start thinking about this. I know that Highland's in here. Hey, Hunter, is there dots in Highland?
Oh, yeah.
There's some dots in Highland? There's four dots. That's pretty good. There's a lot of dots down here by Troy. Start thinking about, you're in this to sustain your communities with the vision that you want. How do you sustain your community with the vision? You have to have people that live and work and pay their bills and their mortgage. And you have to have businesses that employ people. Might be one person, might be 3,000 people. Where are they being employed? How can you distinguish yourself from people that are all over this region? Ann Arbor's over here, they got a lot of dots. If you're here and you're trying to say, you know what, we need to produce income-generating economic development over the next 10 years that allows us to budgetarily sustain ourselves so we can have cool parks and all these great features we want, why are they choosing you over here? There's a lot of dots over there, a lot of people working. Here's the commuting patterns. Now this is interesting. So Oakland County leads the region in a lot of things. We also lead the region in work. So about 400,000 people live here and work here. Those are the people that stay in town. Look at how many people commute from Wayne County to Oakland County, Macomb County. Look how many people commute out of Oakland County. That's a lot of people. So our unemployment rate now in Oakland County is 6.5%. Not bad. It's the lowest it's been since when, Dan? 2008? Around 2008? So we're getting better. Things are getting better. Regionally, the unemployment rate's about 8%, 8.5%, depending on where you're looking. All these people are working in businesses that you want in your community. And if you don't want them there, that's okay. You're just, as they say in the parlance of the work that we do, and I do particularly in my own career, if you're a community that doesn't want new stuff, that's okay. You're just a dying community. That's okay. You'll eventually wake up and realize that. If you're not actively thinking about what are the businesses that are coming and going in my community, then you're just kind of withering. It's okay. So how do people perceive Oakland County? We get into the idea of perception. This is Brett Razikin's only form of humor, a bond time story. Shows you how boring planners are. A bond time story. So we have the AAA bond rating in Oakland County. So right now we have 980 or so international corporations from 38 different countries. We're the 12th wealthiest county in America. 72% of Oakland County, are we still 12? 10. We're the 10th wealthiest county, and Dan is our Cracker Jack statistician. Can find any demographic number you want on this stuff. 10th wealthiest county in America. 70+% of our population has gone to college. That includes the kids, which means most of our adult population has had some college. 48% of Oakland County residents have a college degree, associates or higher. Those are all good stats. What's the number one way we're perceived? We've had a AAA bond rating longer than any county in America. And Bob Dado, our finance director, is our budget genius. Multi-year budget. Our perception of what Oakland County is from an economic development perspective is in part, yeah, we go travel international. It's in part guys like Eric Phillips that do the business planning and sustainability. You know, we changed our access to capital from about $8 million a year. That group took it up to about $32 million last year, access to capital. Those are great things. This is what we're known for. We've held a AAA longer than any county in America, and we're the only county in America that does 3-year line item rolling budgets. We're balanced through 2018. When you tell the business story about who you are, how does the community perceive you? Your community. When you're out there and a business is going to choose your community, what are they thinking? They're thinking, man, the building inspectors in this town are all assholes. They could be thinking that. And this is why I use bad words. There's guys like me that develop property or used to develop property, this is the way we talk, but it's a lot worse. So trust me, if you've got core issues like that, then you've got core issues. If that's your perception, you're in trouble. You have to be thinking as leaders about that. Rochester Hills is a good example. My good friend Brian Barnett, mayor of Rochester Hills, is a great community. They got like 3% unemployment. Phenomenal. It used to be 10 years ago very difficult to do development in Rochester Hills. I know because I was an attorney that got paid to do economic development. The big bad developers would pay me money to come and make you look foolish. That's what was my job. How fast could I get things approved? How could I fool you? How could I get things through the system? That was my job for almost 20 years. When I went to Rochester Hills, I charged more money up front because I knew I couldn't get through the system no matter how hard I tried, because the downstream people in their engineering department and the building officials were the worst that you would ever imagine in your life. And I knew I couldn't beat them, so I just charged my clients more money. So now you go to Rochester Hills, you talk to the good mayor there, he's a great mayor, got a great team, Pam's great economic development director, and they said, yeah, but we're not like that anymore. I said, yeah, but what if I haven't done a project here in 8 years? I don't know any different. To me, you still are horrible. Nobody's the same way. Nobody's turned around, same way. Troy, to their credit, you would admit 5 years ago, your reputation in certain areas is different. Now developers, they brag about Troy. Perception, how do they think of you? For us, we can rely on Oakland County's 10th wealthiest. Start thinking, what am I relying on? What are people talking to me about? Here's the economic context and how we start to think about what we're doing in economic development. Orange lines are no good. In 2009, net loss of 59,600 jobs. We lost a lot of jobs. This is what Brooks calls the Great Recession. It's a big hole. We're doing better now, though. So these are the last 3 years, 11, 12, and 13. 2011, 2012, the economists from the University of Michigan that do our economic outlook every said it's the 2 single best years in the history of Oakland County. It doesn't even replace 2009, but that's okay. It comes close. It's good. Here's the projections for 14 and 15, which is good. Everything looks positive, right? So why are we here? We should go outside because it's sunny and nice. We can have ice cream and sing Kumbaya together. It'd be great. So the job numbers look good. We're replacing the jobs. If we go back out even more, one more year projection, these are from the U of M guys. And U of M's a good school. It's not as good as University of Kentucky where I went. But we have a basketball program in our school, which is I usually use that for Michigan Staters, but I'm taking it off. So look at the U of M guys say, look at, we're there. We're almost back. If we go out even one more year, this is what their projections are. So we erased the hole for jobs by, when is it, 2016? That's only 2 years from now. So our projections for Oakland County is we erase the hole. You're an economic developer. You know what that gets me back to? I'm only as good as 2005. I'm not doing that great because I should have had 11 years of job growth in this county, not just getting back to 2005. So the hole is the hole. If we fill the hole with jobs, we filled the hole. Doesn't mean we grew tomato plants, just means we filled the hole. This is what it looks like on a graph. It's a big hole. We have a big hole to fill. In 2009, we got up to 13% unemployment. It's a big hole to fill. When you're thinking about what's my role in my community for economic development, don't think about saving the old man's fence. It's okay, you have to do those things. It shouldn't be your priority. Your priority should be, what are the things that are happening in my community that mean the sustainability of jobs for my neighbors and my friends? What type of businesses are employing people here? Your role as a council person, a planning commissioner, should have these thoughts at the top of your head, because you have to fill the hole. So what type of jobs are out there? Ryan, is this right? Did we have the comparison one? Where's Ryan? Hit it one more time. Oh, see, this is what, he told me I couldn't be able to work it quick. So you look at manufacturing. So the blue line is 1990 and the orange line is 2013. The red line, whatever it is. So we used to be 16% manufacturing economy, now we're 8.8%. The U of M people say in the future we'll never be higher than 8% in manufacturing jobs in Oakland County, probably ever again. Professional and business services, look where we're just going through the roof. Health services, going through the roof. You start to see when you look at these boring numbers like this, I don't know how Dan does it all day long, you start to see the trends that are out there. Manufacturing going down, but look particularly where it is. We don't build cars anymore, or machinery. We don't fabricate metal products. I mean, look at this, only 1.6% of our economy, our job base, is in those types of industries. Now, are they important? Darn right they are. Do they employ people? Yes. Do they pay taxes? Yes. But look where our growth sectors are in the economy. Professional and business services, scientific, technical, all these different things, health service, ambulatory care, hospitals, the growth of what we're doing from a job perspective. It's important to know this types of stuff because, another bad joke from Brett Rasmussen, times they gotta change. So Bob Dylan sang that song a long time ago because we were at war and things were changing. We're still in a war. Times have changed. That guy up in the corner, I'll smack that grin off his face one of these days. You know him, it's Dan Gilbert, if you don't know him. Gary, you knew that was Dan Gilbert, didn't you? Good. Dan's a great guy. He's a great lover of this state and this community. He lives in Oakland County. He's doing a great job in Detroit, isn't he? If you don't have the first foggiest clue as to what the economic context of your community is, that guy's got about $1 billion to tell you what it is in his community. And he's doing it down there, the Madison building, the rest. Detroit finally has a mayor, someone that can actually think. That guy resurrected the entire health system out of nowhere, turned it into a major profitable center. He's one of the most savvy politicians outside of my boss you'll ever meet in your life. And if you don't think that the times have changed so that we're in the same war that Bob Dylan sang about, with these two guys and all this happening in downtown Detroit, then you must really love Detroit. I encourage you to move there and run for city council. Because your passion is okay to be happy for Detroit. It's okay. But your job as an economic developer for your community is to be mindful of this is the competition. It moved in next door to you. And it's good that it's here. That tide rises, we rise too. Our job is to make sure that we're ready for the opportunities as they come. Because if you have an opportunity that comes to the region, and you have Dan Gilbert that says, you can go in my Madison building for free, almost as long as you want, how are you going to compete? Did you have a cute downtown? How do you compete with that? You have, is there any mocks for you in here? I hope not. They're going to beat me up. I love those guys. I live in Lake Orion, so it's good.
Yeah.
There's a supervisor Brian. Those I see, the other things I pick up, I never pick up. I tell us the good stuff, how we change that. If you're giving away free stuff at the Madison building, and you got a choice of an IT company moving to your town or not moving to your town, will they choose the Madison building or they choose your town, and why? So if they're at your counter, what's the expectation then? How do you compete with that? Well, it's free, and it's got Mr. Grins. It's good. How can we compete with that? We can compete with that. This is my last slide, and I'm going to turn it over to Dan now.
I think that's mine.
Is this your slide?
Yeah.
You want me to turn it over right now?
Yeah.
This is a good one. At the end of the day, as Dan's coming up, maybe not today, but at some point, you've got the development that's going to be in front of you. And if you look at it and say, geez, you know what? Our general fund revenue base from 2003, we're not even back there yet, not even close. This project is worth X to our community. I'm going to come running into your room and I'm going to cheer and scream hooray because you have figured out what you're supposed to be asking. Not what color is the sign. We're in a place for that. First question, not really the first question, but one of the primary questions is what is this worth to me? Not on a personal level. How many jobs? How much revenue? What's the equity investment? What is this going to do for my economic vision? So to talk more about that is Dan Hunter. Dan is our Deputy Director of Economic Development. If you don't know Dan, he's a good guy. He's been here a long time. Howdy, Dan.
I have been here a long time,
Here's a clicker.
and I love it.
Here's a clicker.
But I also come at it way before that from a small business, family perspective. Is that working now, or did we shut it off? In family business and manufacturing, I'm a huge proponent of manufacturing that was located in Philadelphia. And over the last decade, with heavy manufacturing leaving the Philly metropolitan area and a lot of our customers, my father and brother closed it up after 120 years in business. So, small business perspective, small business dealing with communities. My father was always dealing with the city of Philadelphia and building inspectors, and so I get it from that side, but I also get it from a marketing perspective as an economic developer. I want to thank all of you for coming tonight. Thank heavens there's not a World Cup soccer game of our favorite team. I'm not sure about lunch tomorrow. It could be interesting. But thanks for coming. I want to thank you as community officials and volunteers, for planning commissions, staff, ZBAs, for taking the time to kick the tires here and have a good discussion. You're doing the heavy lifting on a day in and day out basis, working with business in your community. So I want to thank you. Yeah, this is, so Matt kind of gets some of the good stuff to talk about. The economic information, and I get to be maybe a little bit of the Bob Dada. But the good stuff, if you want more on the jobs that Matt was talking about, this is the report. It's on our website at advantageoakland.com from George Fulton and Dr. Grimes. Really breaks down very detailed the industry sectors, what's going to be growing, what kind of wages, and that stuff. And it's great that we're making this progress. We're getting out of the hole on jobs. Businesses are feeling confident. But we still have a long way to go. 6.5% unemployment. Pontiac, 18% unemployment. Down from 32%. So it's getting better. But we still have a lot of people that are really hungry out there. But on the financial side, over here on the left, this is the taxable value in billions for Oakland County. And you can see 2007 was our peak. We're almost up to 80 billion, and we lost 29% of our taxable value. A huge hole. How are we going to fill that up? This is the amount that the county was receiving every year prior to that time. 271 million, dropped to 206. And, a couple of dots, bottomed out, turned the corner, property values are coming up, but it's going to take a while. Oh, I want to go back. Not done. I talked to Dave Heber from Equalization. This is all data from Equal. They do a great job. The forecast for 2014 is 1.6% growth. 2015, it's 3%. And 2016 is 4%. So getting better. But how many years do we have to go to get back to where we were? Just for the county, and it's 271 million. We've got a bunch of years. Probably longer than the jobs that came back from 2005 to 2014. So there's a decade to get those jobs back. I think it's going to be a little longer, just proposal A and CAP, to get the tax base back. we've done some modeling. Dan Riley has found a tool with the Federal Reserve, it's a physical impact tool. And so we've done some modeling just to kind of get a sense of some really neat potential projects in each of your communities. We did the same thing last year with the 7 communities that we're in. And just to get a feel for if these projects happen, what kind of tax base would we gain from them. So this is White Lake, and this is Waltz Point. Pontiac Lake, this is just west of Oakland International, and a beautiful facility out there. Waltz Point, 9 acres, 9.2 acres. I used this tool, I think it was last April. We had a Tier 1 automotive supplier. Where's the Independence Township folks? There's Paul back there. We took it up and did a presentation because they were looking to open up a vacant facility in Independence Township. And so what was the economic impact? Here for Waltz Point, this is a commercial, really a modest commercial redevelopment of about $2.5 million. But 50 jobs, there's probably hard to see in the back, but there's $2.25 million payroll that wasn't there before. That's pretty neat to have, be circulating it in the community. With some indirect jobs that would be created as a result of that development on Waltz Point. The calculation even projects that because of those new jobs, there would be new homes built or homes purchased in the community by those employees at an average real estate price. And so that's kind of down here at the bottom with the residential. Anyway, it's a pretty cool tool. And the projects, I think Orion was out on Brown Road, an 87-acre project. And so you kind of get a sense of, for the 7 communities, what the personal property, and what the total investment is. It'd be neat if we could just sort of snap our hands and have that sometime in the next year or two. But $82 million of total investment, real and personal property. And so the taxes that would accrue from that investment, a smaller number, but a very nice one, almost $3 million, adding them all up. Just kind of simple, illustrative. Okay, we go back. A $65 million hole. It's just accounting. And that was an annual loss in tax revenues that we were getting in 2007 that we're not getting now. And to all our credit, we've all been dealing with this. We're still maintaining, if not improving, the services with less dollars. At least for the county, there's been no tax increase. We've been working smarter and more efficient. So the 7 projects, $2.9 million in annual revenue for all taxing jurisdictions. Out of that, what's the county number? $249,000 compared to $65 million. It's a big hole. I don't do a very good job, do I? But I mean, that's what we've gone through. We've gone through the Great Recession. My parents were born in the mid to late 20s, and so they constantly talked about the recession. I hate to say it, but now I can talk about the recession with my kids. 2 20-year-olds getting out of college and having to deal with that. I hope we don't see another one of those for a long time. But we've got our work cut out for us, just to get back to where we were. With that, we've kind of framed the program focus and the economics of job creation, very good. Taxing, heading back up. I'm going to hand it back to Matt. Thank you very much.
All right, so Kristen, David? Yes. We made how much off those investments in the county? Less than 300,000, right? 270. So, Steve, how much investment was it? Who knows? How much investment in those 7 projects that we modeled? $82 million worth of check writers. We modeled it. We only made $279,000 off it.
I have a question. So all we're focusing on is the money that's coming in, but what about the people that live there? We're just gonna pick them up, are we gonna give them jobs or not?
Excellent question, excellent question. The focus is about the people, because we're getting into the next stage. It's who are you? What kind of community are you? How do you want to be perceived? Those types of questions about how does this apply to anything that has to do with us? I asked Waterford one time, Dan, you got something to add?
Well, I was just gonna say, the Waltz point was just an illustration. The one thing, the communities are doing the hard work of looking at the zoning ordinance and the master plan. You have the vision, and that is great, because it all adds up to an incredible county. It's just an illustration that if that was a project that made sense to the community, what would the tax benefit be? And so for the 7 projects, it was just sort of, oh, let's take something that might be reasonable. Actually, Waltz Point could be much larger than that on 9.4 acres, potentially, from what I know about it. So the decision-making in terms of, well, is that project and what happens to the residents that are there, thank heavens, that is, the heavy work that you're doing. Planning commissioners and ZBA and city council.
Does gentrification?
Oh, absolutely. That's a big concern.
Well, I want to thank you because you picked a controversial project and we put it in our presentation. That was a nice answer. That's good. Thanks, Dan. Thanks. It is truly just a lot. I asked Waterford one time, who are you? It wasn't Gary, it was the DDA, what's her name?
Margaret.
No, Marie Huff. Okay. I said, who are you? What kind of community are you? Who do you want to be? Who are you? What? Say something that defines who you are. She says, we're the best neighborhood in Oakland County. And there's a lot of communities that would maybe dispute that. But that's good. So let's go with that. You're the best neighborhood in Oakland County. So are you being the best neighborhood in Oakland County? So what does that mean? I said, well, you got to do stuff to be that. I mean, if that's what you are, then how are you being the best neighborhood? She said, well, we got good parks, we got this. I said, okay, well, so what are you doing to make all that happen? I wasn't trying to be Laurel and Hardy with there. I was just trying to make a point that who you are is extremely important, and what you do to sustain that is extremely important. So we want to start to get some perceptions of what you think about yourself. Right? This is what we're doing.
Clickers, there's only about 4 clickers per table though, so you guys are gonna have to share those.
Sure, we have more guests tonight than clickers. We apologize, but so give it to anybody except
We need a good-looking woman's perspective, so go ahead.
First question. Get you warmed up on the clicker.
The answer is your liaison.
Which tiger do you miss the most?
Your liaison.
Which tiger do you miss the most? Because even Justin Verlander is not really here anymore. Which tiger do you miss the most? So we've got more than, the little number goes on the corner, so we got more than 41 clickers now.
We have 60.
There's 60 clickers. There's a clicker just sitting there. Now, I will tell you, if you can't answer which tiger you miss the most, you're really not going to answer the next one. This is just a warm-up question.
Line working?
Let's see what we got. Willie Horton, Al Canada. I like it. Justin Verlander, that's Brian Barnett. One vote said Jim Leland. Who said Jim Leland? That's great. Yeah, no, it's good. Tigers, I think, they're on a 3-game winning streak, right? So when we went through this slide the other day, they were on that really horrible losing streak. I said, put Brad Osmus on. I don't know what we're going to do. That's good. So it's good. Tigers, let's go to the next one. All right, here we go. How ready, responsive, and flexible is your community responding to an investment opportunity? Answer this honestly. This is about how you perceive yourself. First point of the program, self-evaluation. How do you think of yourself? We're the best. I think you're ready. I think you can do it. I have no idea. I don't care. You probably are okay. What is an investment opportunity? Answer it honestly. You're two. Does it come forward?
Attach yourself. Yeah, that's fine. Sorry.
It's not an easy question, is it? Not an easy question. How long do you perceive you? All right, let's see the result.
No disrespect for our.
I think we're ready. Somewhat ready. This is good. So who said we're the best? Independent said they're the best. It's okay to believe you're the best. Auburn Hills was in the program last year, still in the program, working the program. We went to present to their council, and their council said, what do we need this for? And then they laughed, because they said, we absolutely need this. Because even though we think we're the best, there's something we can learn. But look where the trend is. I think we are. Maybe somewhat, I mean, this is where the bulk of it lies. So who answered, we're somewhat ready? We're somewhat ready. So why do you think you're somewhat ready?
Well, I just feel that we're only somewhat ready because as a trustee on a board, I don't have the opportunity of knowing what businesses are looking to do investing into our township. So I'd like to have more of that knowledge of knowing, what investments.
So some of the communication that happens within your township, or some of the expected process and results, maybe that could be known a little more from the staff level up to the board. Who else answered somewhat? Somewhat. Why did you answer somewhat?
Well, because even though as a planning commission person, I think that we're doing the right thing, I tried to get process of building in the city, and from the building standpoint, I didn't get the speedy responses I would hope.
All right, so you've had some personal experience, which led you to have a perception that, maybe this could go a little bit better, even on your own accord, right? Is that what I'm hearing? Opportunity for improvement. Who answered, what does an investment opportunity mean? I know it was a joke, but I wanted to draw that. Probably Gary Wall. Nobody will admit that. So let's go to the middle. Who answered, I'm not sure. I'm not sure how ready you're. So why are you not sure?
Because I did highly.
Okay, well, that's good. Who else answered not sure? There's probably one or two more. Why are you not sure?
For similar reasons, I'm with Pontiac, so I'm still trying to learn the precious process.
So in Highland, has anyone sat down with you and introduced you to all the staff and talked to you about what you do there in the process?
Yeah, yes. Yes. I know everybody, and I know basically what they're supposed to do.
Perfect, perfect. So you can see on this question, you all are part of your community. So if a young man flies in from Japan and comes into your community, how do you want them to perceive you? If we had to revote, we want them to perceive you were the best, right? But I think only one person, like I said, were the best. Of independence. All right, let's go to the next question. How aligned are the elected officials, appointed officials and staff in the vision of your community? How aligned? How much are they thinking together? Answer honestly. Answer honestly. They're all on the same page. That doesn't mean that three of them stand through the meeting and just vote when they're supposed to. All on the same page. Dialogue, a lot of debate on the board, but we're on the same page for the most part. I'm not sure because I don't know how organized chaos. All they do is argue and fight. Meetings never end. They go till 1 o'clock in the morning. No one talks to each other. These are your choices. These are your choices. How aligned is everyone in your community? Notice how it says elected officials and staff. So if you have a board that everybody loves each other and sings Kumbaya, but everybody hates the staff, you're probably not on the same page. Are we doing get some numbers? All right, let's see what the results are on this one. For the most part, on the same page. We got several votes for organized chaos. Now, this is a very classic municipal makeup, right? Because it sometimes has the appearance of organized chaos, but sometimes it can be organized chaos. So, who answered this one? For the most part, everyone's on the same page. Somebody did, but there's gotta be someone that believes this, independence. Come on, you're not. Now, Independence is one of those communities where, for the most part, you are on the same page, but it's healthy debate, you guys always debate things. But it's pretty good on track. Who answered, I'm not sure if we're on the same page. Tammy? I know my own, that's where I live. You're one of these two.
Well, I just at times,
I live there, I can say that.
you think you're on the same page, and then you see something happen, and you question.
Makes you question. You're not sure? It's a somewhat recent phenomenon out in Oregon. Changed, I'm not sure. But these things happen too. Because politics ebb and flow, and projects ebb and flow, and stress ebbs and flow, and people are going through stuff at home that ebbs and flow, and all kinds of things. So, who can tell me why it's important to at least know the answer to this question? Gary Wall, why is it important to know the answer to that question?
Because you're going at it all in. One person can cause this to fail, but one person can't make it happen. You have to have everybody on the same page, working in the same direction.
Does it-
Well, once every 2 weeks, I have to take a walk through the township and remind certain people what our goal is.
Dane, does it mean everybody has to vote the same?
No, but, you know, it's a choreography, and you better be on the same, like a team, you better be on the same page, or if you don't, it's gonna break down. So, you know, I mean, debate is okay, you can have discussions, but ultimately, you better come to a consensus to get it done.
Is it important to have a common understanding of where the vision for your economic sustainability is going? Dane, is it important to have everybody saying, okay, we're all kind of going in this direction? We might get there with different arguments, but we're all going, is that important to the process of
I
change?
mean, we just wrote the master plan, and, you know, at the end, that's your vision for the future, and if you got 50% of people going left and 50% going right, you're not gonna have much success.
Later in the academy sessions, I talk less. Hopefully. I know Glenn's thinking, yeah, hopefully, talk less again. We bring in communities that will talk about management structure and talk about the importance of having an alignment, not in votes, not in we all say yes or we all say no, but an alignment that everybody from top to bottom has the same philosophical drive. So Troy's a good example of it. So 5 years ago, Troy was not aligned from top to bottom. Its leadership at the top acted much differently than its staff at the bottom. They fixed a lot of that in Troy. Now developers say, wow, that's really cool. So they've got a brand new theater, they've got development on Big Beaver Road, they've got new industrial development, Magna State, their headquarters, they have some really cool stuff. And I know all of you have really cool stuff going on too. This is not about how much money you can make or how many projects you can complete. This is about how aligned can you get, because it affects the perception of who you are. If people think you are organized chaos, they will avoid you. People don't want to go to organized chaos. They only go there if they have to. So you can be organized chaos if you're the coolest, cutest little downtown. But that's it. All right, next question. How high of a priority is customer service in your community? Where do you rank customer service? Customer service is top priority.
I ran it.
I have no idea how staff handles customer service. I don't even know. We get complaints about customer service. If you're elected, appointed, you have heard the rumblings in your community. You're only good enough to get elected or appointed if you're involved. If you're involved, you hear things in your community. Is customer service the #1 priority? See, less people are voting now. Always happens, right? Always happens. Less people vote. Man, I don't know. Just answer honest. If few more people vote, we'll show the answer. All right, so what do you think about customer service? All right, let's see the results. It's the top priority. For more than half of you in the room, it's the top priority. All right, who said we get complaints and answered honestly? 53% didn't answer honestly. So who answered we get complaints? Somebody? Yes. What kind of complaints? Customer service. Is it?
Not helpful, good answers, different answers from different people.
Get to run around a little bit. Maybe it's perceived even. It's not even intentional, it just happens. Who else answered that you get complaints? Somebody must. Yeah, what kind of complaints?
Well, I'm in the same community.
Oh, same community, okay. Same
And
community.
also that you have this mess.
So not very one-stoppers. So when I was supervisor of Orion Township, my staff has heard this story many times before, and the Orion folks probably know it. We had a young man come to the counter when I was supervisor. And I had an administrative assistant that had been there for a long time. And I called her the vault. Is to get any information or to get to me, you had to know the combination. Orion thieves, they know that. She can be a little tight with their information. But she's a wonderful girl. She's been there a long time, and she really is a wonderful girl. So the young man comes to the counter, and he's got a satchel full of stuff, and he's talking on his cell phone. And we had a sign, I don't know if you still have it, Chris, but we had a sign that said, no cell phones at the counter. Who has a no cell phone at the counter sign anywhere in their township hall? No wonder you get complaints. It's the most unwelcoming thing on the planet. Everyone has a cell phone. Why would you not want them on your property? So we have no cell phones at the counter. So no cell phones at the counter is the guy standing there talking on his cell phone. She barks at him, sir, you have to take that around the hall. There's no cell phones at the counter. And he started to leave. Yeah, and that was one of our $20 million investments in 2010. That was about to walk out the door. All because we said, you have to take that outside. There's no cell phones at the counter. Where do you rank your customers? What is the priority? So your staff know that it's a priority. That the investment, it's one stop ready as they walk up to the counter, and you on the other side, you're ready, man. I'm ready. Come on, I'm ready. No cell phone at the counter. Customer service. All right, let's go next question. Do you know the needs of the business community? Answer this honestly. If you're a planning commissioner, do you know the needs of your business community? If you're a supervisor or a ZBA or a staff person, do you even know what they want? If I had to ask you what's the top 5 business needs in your community, can you answer that? Answer number 4. If you care less,
As long as you pay attention, I don't care.
I've been involved in government a long time. A lot of people say, who cares? Who cares? All right, let's see the results. Somebody's just being sorry. I think I know, or I'm not sure. This is the bulk of it, right? That's almost 80% of the vote. I think I know. Maybe not so much. I'm not sure. Mixed signals? Yeah. And this is kind of been, it could be either one, right? It could be either one. Maybe I know, I'm not sure. Kind of in between. So that's the bulk of the room, I'm not sure. So if a business is, give you an example. So if a guy in Miami, in the city of Miami, wants to open a food vendor business, it requires him to get almost 30 different permits to open a food vendor, like a mobile food vendor with a trailer type thing. 30 permits to open that business in the city of Miami. So if there's a business person in your community, what do you think is more important to them? Getting that business going, or worrying about whether his sign is 6 inches out of the line? You have to think about what the needs are of your business community. It's the easiest low-hanging fruit on the face of the planet to be an economic developer in your community. Have business forums. Go out and talk to them. Have the guy be honest and say, you know what, I had to do a sign thing. They made me come back 3 times to get the permit. If you as a leader in your community know that, then guess what you get to do? You get to fix it. Guess who's a hero? The business guy is bragging at the coffee shop. They actually fixed that. I didn't have to do this anymore. The business people look at you in astonishment because they think government people are all curmudgeons and hermits and are there to be frustrated. So if you listen to your business community, you can be a hero. I like being a hero. It's fun. It is fun when business people are actually pleasant and talk nice about you. So we have one more question? One more question. How long do you believe it takes to get preliminary site plan approval in your community? How long does it take to get site plan approval? Preliminary.
Yes.
Cross the word out preliminary, because some of you don't even have that process. Just say site plan approval. How long does it take to get site plan approval? Now, this is not a question that you can say, well, what about this? Or what if they do this? Or what happens?
The only
How long does it take to get through your community?
is because people don't have, they need cells out there.
10 people are scared to answer. How long does it take?
What are you saying? What?
All right, let's see. Let's see what it is. 30 to 60 days, 60 to 180 days. 25% of you said it takes almost 6 months to get through your planning commission. Oh, see?
45 days?
Time to walk in the door? Okay, who's on a council or a township board? City council? Not a planning commissioner or a ZBA?
What is, what, I'm sorry.
Supervisor. Why is it important to know how long that takes?
Because if you can make it shorter, you're gonna get better developers, more developers. They want to take and open up the doors for business.
It's a good answer.
They don't want the roadblocks, they don't want the red tape.
It's a good answer. It's part of the full answer. Who else raised their hand? Why is it important to know that as an elected official?
Because you're a manager, you have to sort of bring all the pieces together, and you can't do that if you don't have the information.
You don't have the information. So you've got an elected official says it's important to know how long this takes because you want to create an expectation in your community that you're efficient. Paraphrasing, okay? You have one that says, yeah, we're also managers of our community. Who remembers the first question? There might have been the second one that had the word align in it. Is it possible to be aligned from elected management to staff unless you know the answer to this question? If you say yes, then you're just not in the right mood. You have to know the question. You have to know not only for that question, but other questions. And here's why. Because as an elected official, you should have an expectation that the answer to this is the most efficient way possible. Now, we don't put up there to say the most efficient way possible, because everybody would answer it. But your expectation should be from a staff level, of course the staff are doing everything they should do to make sure that this process is as expedited as possible, because the good supervisor says that's how we want to be perceived. We want the check writer to say, yeah, this is great. We go right through the system. We got to abide by the rules. We have to submit our stuff. We have to pay our fees, but we get right through the system. So if your expectation is 30 to 60 days, which is normal, usually takes about 45, 48 days in a very efficient community to really get through the process, because you got bonus requirements and things. So 45 days, if that's expectation, if you're an elected official and you find out that most site plans take 9 months, it should trigger something in your head. Something's wrong in my community. We're not one-stop ready. It must be they have more stops. Because you can only take 6 months if you have more stops. So to be one-stop ready, you at least have to have the expectation of alignment that we're all on the same page. We have an expectation of where we're going with that. So is that the last question? So the idea of this program, as you're learning tonight, we're just kind of hitting you between the eyes, the nuts and bolts of this whole thing, is to start thinking about what is your role. I remember once that I walked up to a counter and there was a person standing there in somewhat of a hurried mood. You've seen people that are kind of had that hurried appearance to them, right? It's like, all right, come on, I need this answer, I need to get out of here. I gotta go, that kind of person. And he was saying, I need to know about this piece of property because I'm subject to a 1031 late kind exchange. And the clerk at the counter, I am not joking, looked at the clock and said it's 11 o'clock. Had no idea what a 1031 exchange was. You as an economic developer need to have a state of readiness that even if you don't know that answer, you don't look at the clock and say, oh no, it's 11 o'clock. And I pick on that story for a point as our next speaker is getting ready. You are the leadership of your whole world out there, sustainable or not. It's your great opportunity to be responsible for that leadership, to have an economic vision, and as you're doing your work as planning commissioners, say, all right, wait a minute now. Our vision is to get to this point, to get to this direction for our community. And I'm looking at this project. I'll end with this story. It's a signature story from my career in Orion Township. There was a fast food restaurant that wanted to locate on the corner of Baldwin Road and I-75. Probably a pretty good spot for a fast food joint, wouldn't you think? Across the street from Great Lakes Crossing. They had taken, I don't know, 3 or 4 years of debating with the prior supervisor, prior people. It's a mess, just a mess. Never got through. So we get the restaurant, went from a Del Taco to a Taco Bell. We get the restaurant going. We had fixed enough of the ordinance that we got it down, they needed one variance. Trying to get Orient to make it so that it was a 25-foot setback, because it was like 28 feet, but they made it a 50-foot setback, what used to be a 100-foot setback for squat boxes. Because the ordinance said from a residence, not from residential zoning. So there's a house in a commercially zoned piece of property, been commercially zoned in master plan for years, that was going to sit right off the corner of that squat box. And of course the supervisor said, I don't really give a you know what, we're going to get this deal done, because it was 2009, and the county lost 60,000 jobs, and GM told us, well, we're closing the plant, and we lost, I don't know, about 22 suppliers that year. So of the 60,000 job number, Orion Township lost about 6,000 of those jobs, 10% of the total job loss. So I wanted to Taco Bell. You gotta do something. So it goes to the ZBA. The ZBA has the presenter up there, and they say, we want you to screen the house. We want you to plant 25-foot tall evergreen trees to screen it. You know how much that cost? $48,000.
$40,000.
I knew because I found out, because I'm like, how much does a 25-foot tall tree cost? It costs a lot of money. So it would have been fine, because the applicant stood at the dais, in front of the dais, and said, we can do that, but I need a decision tonight, so can you approve me conditionally? And then he was called greedy, and they tabled it for 60 days so that he could prepare a plan that showed the trees on the plan. And the next day, it might have been 2 days later, I got the letter from Yum Brands, because this wasn't a local franchise, this started out as a national franchise. And it was July, which means they go to committee in July. And if people would have known that on the ZBA, they would have said, ask a different question. They would have said, wait a minute, are you subject to a like-kind exchange? Do you have bank financing commitment? Is this a national franchise or a local franchise? Because if it's a national, I bet you have to get approval somewhere far away. How does me tabling this completely screw you up? But they didn't ask that. They said, you're just greedy, and they tabled it. And I got the letter, and the project went away for an entire year. We lost that. Taco Bell's all in with site cost, infrastructure, signage, electric, all that stuff. Costs about $6 million. So back to Dan's slides. When we say, do you know the value to your community? What's in front of you? So Orion on that fateful night decided to chase that out of our community. But guess what else it did? It confirmed our perception in Orion back then, that we were anti-development. So I shudder to think what else did we lose? So as you're proceeding through these courses and these classes, this is intended to get you thinking differently about what's in front of you. But the purpose of all of that is to make sure you know your economic vision. So we have brought an excellent speaker. She's much better than me. Hamilton Anderson, right? Mixed-use firm that does all kinds of stuff, planning, development services, and all of those types of things. And I completely forgot your name because they didn't tell me. Did you tell me?
I did.
What's her? Don't pick on me. What's her name?
Amy Chester.
It's Amy. Say welcome to Amy.
That's right, my husband's translating. So I realize I'm the only thing standing between you guys and getting home to your families. So what I'll try to do is go quickly. Since I'm in design world, we don't use PowerPoint, we create these fancy things in PDF, so I have to head back to the laptop every once in a while, so bear with me. Matt set it up perfectly. What I want to talk to you about in the next couple of minutes is thinking differently. And one of the things that when we work in a lot of communities that we try to help them understand is that you might be in a community that is robust enough to have an entire department of economic development. Chances are you probably don't. If you are doing economic development, you are wearing many, many hats. But one of the things that we try to hammer home is that community development is economic development. If you are thinking of them as two separate departments, we want to encourage you to start thinking differently. Community development is economic development. As you continue to work forward with a lot of planning, that you are doing as you're moving, as you start to be changing your vision, you have to start thinking about the things people traditionally think of as community development, as economic development. So hopefully I've hammered that point home enough. But before you start that, you really need to have an understanding for what your weaknesses and strengths are. There's a lot of data. Some of you are new to your departments. Some of you have been there for a long time. It might be time for a checkup. But it's really important for you to understand who you are. Understand your strengths and weaknesses. Again, if you're new to the department, you might not exactly know what your strengths and weaknesses are. And also create a vision and outline your plan. So when you're going through, how do you start to understand who you are and what your strengths and weaknesses are? Surveys, right? Everybody's done. How many of you have done a survey in some way, shape, or form throughout your development? Most everybody's done them. One of the things that we encourage you to do is, let's say you have a planning department run their own planning session, you hire a consultant to do them, there's typically a survey involved. One of the things that we would encourage you to do is don't give that to the consultant to do, as much as we would love to do them. We would encourage you to start your own framework, your own process of survey or intake for the community. What this allows you to do is create a very consistent benchmark as you go forward. As you're checking back with the community and you ask them for questions, they don't feel like, oh God, here we go, they're starting all over again. They didn't listen to us last time, we're starting all over again. And it's important for you to use that for continual benchmarking. It's important also, again, so the community does not feel that they've gone through planning fatigue. And it's really important that those results be visible. Surveys can be done in lots of ways. If you are starting the baseline for a benchmark, start with really basic things. What are your priorities? Don't start with, what do you think about this particular shopping plaza and this intersection, and what do you think the improvements should be made? Start with the basic things, and you will find that people can answer very simply. Jobs are very important. Housing prices are very important. Schools are very important. You're probably going to get the very same communities that we work with down in Wayne County. You're probably going to get, everybody wants the same thing. They want a safe place for their children to walk. They want good schools. They want good jobs. You might get a little glimpse if you ask enough questions. It's important to do this not because you think you know what the answer is going to be, but you need to have those results of your community's priorities in front of you at all times as you're going forward and making decisions. Charrettes, planning events are good. They're a wonderful way for you to get an idea of what the input of your community is, but it's important, of course, to start with those priorities. The next step, how many of you in the room think that you have a pretty good idea of what your community's demographics are? I'm not seeing a ton of hands. So this is really important. You probably, if you are part of this process, if you are part of this county, you have access to this information. When we were knee-deep in planning for the Detroit Future City Plan, one of the things that we did a lot of on-the-ground research as far as what does this community look like physically, but it was really about who does this community make up of? Who are the people? And when we were doing it, we started to understand that a percentage of them were families with children, single-parent families was a very large percent, seniors, couples, and it's very easy for us to deduct how those people think and how they're going to move. So what was one of the very first things that we were able to do was take a look at it and say, okay, well, pretty good set of these people, we can't provide what they want. They're probably out of here. The next group are people that they're going to hold on. Mayor Duggan asked them to hold on for 6 months. That expired. We'll see how they did. And that we know that there's some people that are just showing up. There are some people that are just showing up to this community. The reason that we ask you to do that, it is vital that you understand your demographics. In the same way you need to understand who your priorities are, you need to understand who your community is made up of. Another way that you can assess who you are, what people want, is to conduct developer forums. A lot of times communities will do this around a particular project. I don't know if any of you have ever held a developer forum before. It's a really good way for you to get input on what they want, what kind of, typically they will tell you that they want incentives, they want these things, but it's really a good way for you to test how your process is working. And another thing that we found is that when you do this, it's pretty important for you to keep the developers quarantined, because they won't give you the straight answer if they're in the room with other developers. This particular charrette that we ran happened to be some like-minded developers at the time, but if you're going to do it, it's a very valuable tool in understanding what they ultimately want, but it's also, if you want to get really useful information out of it, keep them separate. And then when you are trying to understand what your assets are, it's important to keep your eye on the larger global, regional, and national trends. I'm sure you guys are bored to death with the ideas of walkable places, placemaking, all of these things. But I can't tell you how many times I go to a community and we talk about a lot of these things and they say, yeah, but that's not us, that's not us. That's not important in our community, but I can tell you that nationally and throughout the region, these trends, while they're taking a longer time to trickle down, these trends are coming to fruition. Just some general ones that I'm sure you've all been hearing for a long time now. 88% of Americans say neighborhood is a bigger consideration than household size. So if you do your demographic and you take a look at your land use pattern and you have a community made up of 1 acre lots, 3,000 square foot homes, that sounds great, but you might want to start thinking about what other people are going to want in your community. Walkable urban places, we're all talking, everyone is talking about this, but the chances are, unless you're like a Royal Oak, some of the other communities in here, there aren't a lot of opportunities for walkability in your community. But one thing to keep in mind, when you do your demographic research, you might see that a small percentage of them are young people, but it's also important to remember not all young people are hipsters, and not all elderly people want to live in a retirement community. It's not a one-size-fits-all mentality. So when you talk about these walkable urban places, you don't throw in the towel because you're not a Royal Oak. It's important to know that a lot of these people for these walkable places are satisfied with this notion of micro-urbanism. I know that my community, if it's just that Main and Main, that one block intersection that gives me that little taste of urbanity, a lot of community members are satisfied with this. So really focus on what's going to be that piece of urbanity that you can give your community. And again, Matt was talking a lot about the jobs. The jobs are very important. Attracting the developers are very important. But again, take a look at your land use maps. You're probably predominantly made up of single-family residential. And it's important to help them as larger companies are coming in and are attracting these jobs. Taxes are great, good freeway intersections are great, but the bigger, more powerful, more high-paying jobs are concerned about attracting talent. And the way to attract talent is with that walkable environment, that little piece of urbanity. So you're not only doing yourself a favor, but you're also, by creating this community development is economic development, you're doing that. You're doing the same thing at the same time. It's like a 2-for-1 deal when you start to concentrate on these environments. And then there's these harebrained best practices. You can keep an eye on community development. You can keep an eye on walkable places. We were doing a job for a community in the middle of the state. We were taking a look at what do they have to offer. They were saying, well, we really don't have anything to offer. We're taking a look at some places that they were trending, and we realized that it was a huge nesting location for the peregrine falcon. So we took a quick look, and when you talk dollars and cents, that bird watching happens to be a major economic driver. And when, it's sort of a random note, it's sort of something you would think random, but take a look at what you have in your community that's unique, and do a little research, do some best practice trending, see what other people are interested in that, and what is the demographic of those people like. So it's not just communities that are doing this from a best practice standpoint. We were working a few years back with DMC, and they were at that same point where they were realizing that they had to attract the best and the brightest. Again, it's not necessarily just about the paycheck. They were losing some great physicians, some great researchers, to people that just really didn't want to live in the city of Detroit. And so that started to get really serious for the Detroit Medical Center as they realized there happened to be right in the middle of Midtown, and this is before Midtown was cool. And they started to take a look at best practices from a common initiative standpoint. They know that economic impact and jobs is important, community outreach and services are important. They saw that other medical centers were doing things like local procurement strategies. If they're going to be buying cookies, they might as well buy them at Avalon. If they were going to be having their hospital gowns laundered, they might as well do it in a local place. But then they started to look at shared values. TOD, mixed-use development, we're still working on getting M1 to go up Woodward, pedestrian-friendly environment, culture and education, that all stems around that walkable urbanity that they know that this talented workforce is searching for, and they started to see it's a high tide rises all ships mentality. And again, that started with doing their research from a best practices standpoint. When you come back and look in your own downtown, take a look at what some of the hidden gems are. There might be an opportunity, there might be a small mom and pop business that just doesn't necessarily happen to have a great location. Just like you've been hearing about walkable places, Matt talked about the poor food truck guy in Miami that took 30 permits to get it, pop-up food trucks, pop-up stores. Everyone's talking about them, but I think a lot of people are talking about them because they can be very successful. And you, as a community developer and an economic developer in your community, can assist with doing these very simple things, such as pop-up shops, getting the right business aligned with the right location. They're very inexpensive to do, and unless you are a community blessed to not have one vacancy in your retail areas, you probably also have the space to do that as well. Accentuate the positive. Most of these communities that we work in have spectacular departments. They have theater, they have recreation, they have exercise classes, they have arts, but a lot of them are farmed off in these like municipal. Does any of you? How many of you have like a rec center that looks something like this? Something. That's great, and you might be really proud of it. And I don't want to discourage you if you have this. But one of the things that's wonderful as you start to look at economic development and recruitment and anchors, you really. A lot of people don't really realize that activity that happens in and out of that door are a million missed opportunities for somebody to pick up a cup of coffee, drop off their dry cleaning, go to a bank. So when you're locked up in prison, that economic development opportunity is essentially locked up in prison. There's a lot of opportunities. I'm not saying tear the whole thing down, but there's a lot of opportunities that you could have some of those events. Some of those shows, some of those opportunities in maybe one of those vacant retail spaces. These are things that we see over and over again. It's a missed opportunity. You as a community and all of the services that you provide, the tax dollars that you spend providing these amenities to your residents is a missed opportunity to stimulate additional economic development. How many of you have heard the Austin's Weird campaign? A handful of you have. This has been going on for a long time. One of the things, and the gentleman that finally copyrighted it finally wrote a book on it. But one of the things that's interesting about this, and I think it still holds up a lot of value today, even 10 years later, is find what it is that makes you unique and exploit the hell out of it. There's nothing wrong with there's some random community in North Carolina. They have a hollering festival. A festival devoted simply around women yelling at their husbands. They have a hollering princess, they have a hollering festival, they have hollering t-shirts, they have a whole store devoted to it. And it was created out of nothing. It was created out of absolutely, like out of nuclear matter. This thing did not exist before. Find whatever it is and exploit the hell out of it. We're trying to convince a community that we're working with right now that again, this is just an idea, but when you take a look at, well, we don't really have anything. We don't have anything that's unique. We don't have a downtown. One of the ideas is that a lot of the, if you go to the home furnishing stores right now, mid-century is hot. And if you've got something mid-century, you were planning on putting it on the curb, I encourage you to put it on eBay instead because it will probably sell. Everything that's old is new again. This particular community, it's almost 99% of it was made up of mid-century modern homes. Post-war, slab on grade, but they're competing, the competing community is made up of pre-war, 1940s bungalows, 1932 colonials. And they are trying to fake it on the inside with a lot of these hot mid-century modern ideas and furnishings and everything else. But this particular community has the real deal. Again, you don't know until you take a look at what you have and figure out how you can exploit it. And I say exploit purposely because you really can take it all the way to the ends if you let yourself. How many people think that they have a really crystallized, solid community vision? I wish I had the clicker. No one is raising their hand. Creating this vision is really important. When we do, I'm sure if you guys have done it on your own, or you hired this planning consultant to do a visual preference survey. It's very old school. We still do it. We do it all the time because it's very effective. A lot of communities, this particular image is always very popular on the community preference surveys because when people come in, oh, I want to shop here. This looks like where I want to go here. I want this to be on my block. But obviously, the way you're permitting, the parking requirements that you are requiring your developers to put in, the parking standards, the setback standards. This is, of course, what you're permitting and requiring people to build. So when you start to go into your visioning process, we encourage you to sit down with your zoning board, sit down with the people that are writing your policy. We understand that the move that you move to form-based coding, we understand is a very long, uphill, and sometimes expensive process, but it doesn't prohibit you from doing some of the critical thinking and self-analysis that's required to say, can we build this in our community? Is it even legal? Most communities in Oakland County, unfortunately, this is illegal. You can't build this. So, and when you're creating that vision, this vision, if you say you have a vision and you just didn't answer me, if you say you have a vision and you didn't do it with the community, then start over again. It's necessary for you to create this vision with the community. It doesn't, again, you don't have to hire consultants to do it. Your staff is probably perfectly capable, but it's important for them to do it with realistic tools. Because just like if I asked my 5-year-old to sit down and draw me a picture of what he wants his room to look like, maybe we're redecorating it, I was thinking maybe a new bedspread and some paint. He's going to draw a water slide. He's going to draw that he wants Disney, all his Disney friends to be there, and the whole kit caboodle. It's important, and we do this as community members too. We have to have realistic tools when we're developing our vision. This particular workshop that you see in the upper right-hand corner, what we did with this was we asked the community, tell us what you want, but here's what we have to work with. We're going to divide up. We know that we can afford X amount of recreational space, X amount of single family, X amount of commercial, and we put it in relative term. We put it in a 2-scale size and let them move the pieces around. Because what communities tend to do is when you ask them what they want, they usually take the whole thing and cover it with parks. Of course, there's nobody to maintain those parks, there's nobody to mow the grasses, etc. It's sort of an simplistic example, but it's important to give the community realistic tools when you help them create the vision. This particular community got so judicious with the recreation space that they started cutting it into tiny little pieces and putting it at the exact right location. Talked a little bit about visual preference surveys, very old school. It's still very effective. But you'll hear a lot about charrettes. And for those of you that don't know what a charrette is, it's now a codified term that has to include at least a 5-day process of designing, etc. those are great, but we encourage you to save those, savor them, relish them for very specific development projects. They're wonderful tools, absolutely wonderful tools, and they help you take the vision that hopefully you've already created and put it into action, create an actual design plan. It's just like you need to know who your community is made up of. You need to know there's X number of residents, there's X number, there's X number of young people, X number of older people, et cetera. You need to know what your economic potential is. To take a quick snapshot of what your community can do in the next 5 to 10 years as far as new development is really critical. Once you have that, where are you going to put this economic development? Because if you spread it throughout your entire community and make everybody happy, it's a waste of time. It's a waste of everybody's time. If one economic development project does not incentivize the next, you have wasted everyone's time, you've wasted their money. When we were starting to plan for a lot of the TOD that was going up M1, we started to look at what is the economic potential here, what is the capacity, and where is the main and main? What is the epicenter for these communities as we go up the corridor? We have to put all of our eggs in these baskets. Finish one block before you move on to the next. For those of you that don't know, you're not planners, it's that magic quarter-mile walk, that 5-minute walk. Put your epicenter down somewhere. We're not talking about putting all your incentives, but when you talk about retail, you can do so much for the people that you bring in if you pick a center. But that means there's going to be winners and losers. It does. It really does. Chances are, if you do your market homework and figure out what the capacity is for retail right now, there's a very good chance that it is less than what is currently zoned for commercial right now. You need to start even if it's just us chickens sitting in the room and we're all going, oh, holy crap, what are we going to do with the rest of this commercial corridor? And should we spend more money on this particular area that we don't think is working? And how is it zoned? And will it ever change if it's not zoned differently? These are the very serious questions you need to start having. And you can only do it if you know who you are and what your potential is. So you've picked on, there are, I've seen communities in here that are lucky enough to have their downtown. They have their main and they're already doing this, and they're doing a really great job. But if you're not one of those and you pick your epicenter, what's driving that? Why did you pick that particular location? This happens to be one of the western quadrants of the city of Detroit, and one of the things in this particular quadrant is there is nothing there. To walk 2 blocks feels like 2 hours because it's miserable. There's horribly maintained parking lots, but there might be areas. If you see on here, you start to see these little black lines that are sort of lining the block edge. Those black lines are places that have some sort of urbanity to them. The cheapest building to build is one that's already there. Start to take a look at what has the urban fabric in your community already that you can fill back up again. Put the open sign out again. Start to fill up start to go through your community with those places, and are they connected from one to the other? And by the way, if they're red, that's great because they're actually in business and working, and we can connect one dot from the other. This is a pretty sad story, and this is in downtown Detroit where everybody thinks, oh, well, that's where it's all happening right now, but there's still a lot of work to do everywhere. So once you have this vision and you have your spot, you're starting to make plans for what to do with this space that is currently zoned commercial, we know isn't going to fill up. It's really important within your community to get, as Matt said, get everybody on the same page. It sounds like the way most of you were responding to the survey, that for the most part that's the case, but it's very important for everybody to be on board, literally and figuratively. What a lot of communities do will host a bus tour. Is anybody in the room that was a representative for the Woodward AA for the Alternatives Analysis Project? No one in the room. We've got one right here. One of the things that we did was put a lot of the officials on the bus and took them to a place like Cleveland where they're running this bus rapid transit system. You could see it in action. And by the way, if you can get on a bus, you can probably pick up the phone and call that community and ask them how they got there. And it's very important for those planning officials to physically go to that place and touch it and see it, because they believe it can be true. It's not just some picture that a consultant gave on a slide. It's not a picture that they saw on vacation. You deserve that. You can have that, and other communities have done it. And once they've gone there, every single planning official, staff, especially your council people, they've got to believe in it, and they have to be ready with their elevator speech about what it is that they're doing. If you have one person that's like, yeah, they did that, I heard Matt saying this before, they did that, but that's not me, and that's not really what we're doing, you're gonna kill it. You're absolutely going to kill it. You know, hand out lollipops for the council people that have their elevator speech. Okay, go, we've got 30 seconds. Tell me about the vision for our community and how we're gonna get there. They have to be able to sell it. It's 100% that they have to then take it on and sell it to others. When you have it endorsed by your community, then it's important. And I was so happy to see that as one of the number one items on this is you have to be able to communicate this on the website, on your community website. When folks are looking for, they call them site selectors. You know, the Trader Joe's and everybody wants the Holy Grail, the Whole Foods, right? Everybody, oh, all hail the Whole Foods. If they can come, my community is set. Well, they're site selectors and they worked there. And the fact of the matter is if they wanted to be in your community, they'd be there already. That doesn't mean you can't get them. It doesn't mean there isn't somebody that's probably better that's going to get there. But the way that they look for the communities is, number one, they look at your demographics. They use GIS constantly to tweak the numbers, to drill down and drill down and drill down. And then the next thing that they're going to do is take a look at your website. What they want to know is it's not just about this particular road has 70,000 cars per day. This community has this. That's important. They need to know that, and that stuff, I was going to say another word, that better be on your website. But what's also important are those community development amenities that we talked about before. They want to see how engaged is your community. That's the way that they get their introduction to your community. That information has got to be there. Population, household size, median income, population density, because as we talked about, this whole nod toward urbanity is very important. They want to see how dense you are. The population, the median income can be significantly overcome if you have the population density there. The dollars are all there, they just happen to be in different households. And by the way, that's even better because there tend to be one shopper in every house. You sort of see the way that they're thinking about this. So don't be, if your median income, your median household income isn't higher than the local average, there's many ways that you can overcome that. A lot of communities think I need to get to ICSC. Have any of you ever, IC International Council on Shopping Centers, have any of you ever sent a representative to ICSC? Okay, so we have a couple of the sophisticated. What was your experience there?
Well, I really won't be attending, it's live.
Right. Right, did you know what the experience has been? Okay, you're new. So one of the things that, if you can hire someone to do a little pre-work for you, that's great. There's economic consultants out there that I'm sure would love to do that for you. But we've seen it time and time again. Don't waste money on a booth because the people you want to see are at their booth. They don't have time to come see your booth. A lot of don't waste time on really jazzy marketing materials because it doesn't impress those people. They care about some really specific things, and the small things that you might not have, you can't fake it. So one of the things that's important for you to do is start to make those relationships early and really prove that community engagement and that you are redevelopment ready. A lot of things that you are going to be doing by going through this process is very, very important. The community engagement is also very, very important. And one of the other things, the last thing I'll say about the site selectors is when they come out, And let's say they've looked at you, Big Brother's looked at you through your GIS data, and they've looked at your website. One of the things that a lot of communities don't understand is that, well, they didn't call me. A lot of times they'll go right to the landowner, to the landlord, and you might never know about it. Someone might have said, that's not the price I'm looking for, hang up the phone and you'll never hear from them again. It's very important that you have an understanding of who your major landholders are in your community. You might not have time to keep a total tabs on what their vacancy rates are, but I would definitely have a serious conversation with them. If you ever get a call and you can't make the deal work, call me and we'll see what we can provide as far as incentives go to meet that gap. It's very important that they know that. I want you to get this deal as much as you want me to get, I want you to get the deal as much as you want to get the deal. Call us, don't just turn down the first offer and then never call us. It's happened so many times. It's probably happened in your community and you don't know about it. And then when you communicate this vision, the other thing, back in the late 90s, it was all about the banners and the bollards and the bricks and all about creating our downtown in this walkable, the sort of walkable decorating, as we tend to call it. That stuff's good, but please, please, please don't make it your priority. Your priority are getting these vibrant, active, walkable places. You can do that with concrete. You don't have to have bricks to do that. You can do it with great, you can spend your money helping a business get a beautiful facade rather than putting up banners. All of that other stuff that we talked about, it's great, but don't put your money there first. If you've got nothing else to do with your money, then put up the banners, then do the bollards. But people want to go to an active, walkable destination that's full of retail, full of restaurants, full of outdoor dining. And then when you're communicating who you are on the web, be very careful about what your vision is and how you're promoting it. A lot of people in a lot of communities in the area have this sort of family-centered motto somewhere on their website. And that's great, but I would encourage you to then circle back around to your demographics, because chances are there's only probably at max 25% of your community that's made up of somebody that would identify themselves as a nuclear family. So by putting this motto up on your website, you've alienated 75% of your population. Seniors say, holy crap, I gotta get out of here, they're gonna be raising the school levy again. The young people are like, I'm getting the hell out of here, it's boring. So it's really to be very self-critical about what you're communicating in very small ways to the larger community. And then I'm just gonna zip through this, but once you have your vision and you've talked to all the people and you've got your website is up to par, creating a set of guiding principles that speak back to that, and a lot of this is, oh God, it's that day-long retreat that nobody wants to go to. Sometimes creating guiding principles that outline your vision and very actionable strategies can definitely be worth it. And we know as a community that we want to be engaged, be sustainable, be connected, be visionary, be all of those things. So when you are at a quandary, when you're at a crossroads, you can always check back with your guiding principles. Strategies for implementing, again, community development is economic development. It's not just about getting that Taco Bell in. It's also about, it's the physical and the non-physical. It's all community development. It's all economic development. So when you sort of think about this spectrum of what happens on a short-term basis to what happens on the long-term basis, don't spend all of your time worrying about that one $20 million development when you could be missing out on some really spectacular temporary outdoor events that your community thinks is awesome. And the site selector said, oh my gosh, they actually have some of the things that we think we want to be involved in. It's a very nebulous process, but be thinking about the non-physical as well. Have any of you heard of the whole notion of tactical urbanism? So Mike Lydon, were you at CNU a couple of weeks ago? Congress for New Urbanism hosts a really spectacular conference every year. In 2016, it's going to be in Detroit, so we expect you all to come. Mike is an Andreas Dewani guy who, a big developer, disciple. He's a really young guy, and one of the things that he noticed is that you don't have to have all of this physical development in order to create that active, vital environment that you want. If you have a dead shopping center, make something happen there. talk to your arts community, talk to places that you really want to go, talk to people that are doing things that you would like to do, and see if they would come do that in the shopping, in the vacant parking lot. Throw a bunch of, spray paint 50 lawn chairs and go sit them out there and see what happens. And people will drive by, they might say, well, what the hell is going on there? But they also might say, well, this is kind of a creative community. Things are actually happening there. And and again, this is all about pop-up. This is all about temporary, but it's about modifying or adapting this physical environment to fit your needs. And then lastly, when we talk about these implementation tools, a lot of your very traditional economic development folks have, they have their go-to things, right? They have their tools for economic development, but what I wanted to talk to you about was the non-traditional things. Again, community development. Community development is going to do that for you. You have your TIFs. By the way, if you're considering a TIF, if you are considering going into debt, which is what you're doing, for something that is not part of a larger community vision, then forget it. Walk away, run, because you're going to be saddled with that debt for many, many, many years. And it's very important that you ultimately consider what your community wants and what the vision is. And then write it down. If you have a non-traditional community development and economic development plan, the great news about that is that not all of the responsibilities are going to be in your department. The responsibilities will start to be spread a little bit thinner in your particular area. Some of the responsibilities for the economic development plan, community development plan are going to be down the hall. Some of them might be at the rec department. Some of them might be at the library. Because again, when you try to attract people to these areas and to these activities, everyone is involved. It's not just on your shoulders. So that's it in a nutshell. And I think we're going to stop and then have the group for questions.
Questions?
For the entire group, not just for me.
I don't know about you, but I'm impressed. She's talked way longer than
Maybe I have one.
Okay, Brad.
You talked a lot about the urban development and the Royal Oaks and the house. Some of the communities have some older commercial corridors. Independence is one, the Dixie Highway. There's numerous property owners. There's some vacant buildings, some built buildings, some vacant parcels. How do you get those property owners on one page, assemble that project?
Well, the first thing, the first thing that you do, and again, in the limited time, if you didn't get it, what I was trying to tell you is that get your zoning in line for what you want your vision to be. And if that commercial corridor still says, I don't know, I've seen some really horrendous ones before called corridor commercial or something like that. That means nothing to your vision. And you will, if you always do what you always did, you'll always get what you always got. You will get more of the same. You'll get more of the same crap that's going to be dead in the next 7 to 10 years. So the first step is to get your zoning in line to meet your vision. That's the first step. Hopefully mixed use. Hopefully start to change your setbacks. So if something comes in, they're not going to be set back at 200 feet and walking past to see a parking. But Brett asked some really hard questions. You've got 9 different property owners, 2 of which you don't even know exist. They might be a DBA living in California somewhere. And maybe one of them is that guy that's just never going to sell. So when we talked about finding your main, finding your community, where do you want your epicenter to be? You need to start in a place that is actionable, that has the ability to change, and already has a lot of that infrastructure in place. And there might be missing teeth in the plan. You need to start with the ones that you can actually move into implementation. A lot of times, these things take a long time to get off the ground. We may be talking 5 years until you're able to put a lot of it in action. In the meantime, some of those property owners might be shamed by what they're doing, the fact that they're not keeping up their property. So it's about first aligning your zoning to your vision, starting to talk to the property owners, but more importantly, start your epicenter in a place that you know you can actually start to make change. It's not going to happen overnight, but it certainly won't happen if you don't have a vision, and it certainly won't happen if it's illegal to create that vision in your community.
Mark?
I have a question. It's about mixed use. I have to give a little background. And
It's for you.
Shar, raise your hand. Shar and I are on the board of directors of the Michigan Association of Planning, and part of our effort has to try to figure out why developers won't do mixed use. And a lot of people in this room can't get them to do mixed use. Do you have any comments on it? And we've actually engaged with many developers, the lending community, to figure out why, and it's real tough nut to crack. to
Well,
be honest.
one really good reason is that a lot of the subsidies that are out there right now almost make it impossible for you to finance mixed use. And so unless you are, if you're coming in with trying to think something where you're using home funds, something like traditional, possibly not-for-profit developer that's doing, they physically today cannot use federal dollars to finance those projects. They're not, and people are working on it. MAP, of course, is working on it. Congress for New Urbanism just spent an entire week, an entire week before Congress for New Urbanism to start to get the lobbying pieces in place, and they've started to work out a patch, right? They won't change the policy and they won't change the code, but they've created a workaround for it. That if you really want to do mixed use, you can apply for this, and it's a monster. It's 20 more pieces, but it's because right now, if you want to use just traditional financing, you can do it because, as a lot of the smart developers know, that those are the ones that sell quicker. But if you want to go through,
But then there must be a lot of dumb developers then.
well,
because-
but you'd be surprised how many of them are not using conventional financing though.
Right, but a lot of what we see is conventional, and they find it almost impossible to get money to do it. And it is,
Yeah,
in their
and-
mind, it's not a feasible route, even though our ordinances, our form-based code, and
Right.
they just say that it won't work and it can't get financed.
But the banks, the local banks look up to the feds to give them guidance on that, and if they see that their federal projects are not using those funds, then we're not going to either, and they're gonna leverage them against what's ultimately happening on the federal level. And so it's getting there. Hopefully in 2 more years, you'll start to see home funds, some of the NSP and SP2 funding, but right now it's very difficult because the banks don't get it yet, but it's getting there, it's trending. And by the time the banks and the lenders are there, you're gonna have your vision in place, you're gonna have all your zoning in place.
You'd be surprised how many communities there are out there that have form-based codes and they can't get financed now.
Right, absolutely, but they're there, but it's getting there.
Question?
Yeah, one of the things I was always interested in, especially driving out here tonight, because we all came on a van together, and the corridor, the M59 corridor, I'm from White Lake Township, so we're on the northern section. We don't have the big business, a lot of the big business that you may have over in, cities. But we have something that is unique, in my estimation, and that is the recreational. Like when we passed Waterford, I'm thinking, because I've lived out here many years and raised a lot of kids, but they've got such wonderful things in Waterford to do with recreation. Then you come into White Lake Township, and White Lake Township has a ski lodge. We've got 2 state parks. We've got a wonderful recreational right down the corridor. Then you go into Highland and Milford, and you've got unique recreational things that are going on there. And then when I think of the Ford family, the S.O. Ford family years ago, came out to find a spot to put, when the Lindbergh baby got kidnapped, they wanted a spot. It was absolutely gorgeous, and they picked Highland Recreation Area. And that's where S.O. Ford, that's where they brought their children to protect the children. But I mean, it's really unique that we have this recreational corridor. And what I was thinking about is Elbrook Patterson talks about Automation Alley and he has Medical Alley. And to me, the M59 corridor could be a recreational alley. Another, offshoot in Oakland County as different stopovers. Now, when you go down M59, all the way from Pontiac, I think, and all the way into Milford, there was, when the state came through with the highway, they put off to the side a walkable area. Now, in Waterford, I noticed that some of it was very nice around the Kroger store and that, but that area is still there going all the way down. And my kids 40 years ago used to ride that with their bicycles and have a good time. But, you know, that area is still there, and our township has tried with the state, you know, to get that, because we would be able to actually do a lot of walking right over to our center, which would be like where the J.C. Penney's and the Root Restaurant and things in Oakland County. But when you're dealing with the state, that the state owns that piece, if the different communities got together, Highland, Waterford, Milford, and so forth, to get that, like Recreation Alley, I think it would be fantastic.
But you don't want to deal with the state? I got a question about the state?
Yeah.
All really, really good comments. The nature of something like that, if you think about the diversity even amongst these communities here. So my staff has heard me talk about, you know, wouldn't it be great to create a side-by-side marketing message for a young person that's graduating from Boston University and one from Oakland University, and have a picture of them leaving their first job at 5:32 p.m. in Boston, and leaving their first job at 5:32 p.m. in Pontiac, and then at 6:02 p.m. in Boston, they're still in tunnel in the Big Dig in an hour and a half of traffic, but in Oakland County, they're at their home in White Lake on a mountain bike. So, when you think about the awesome messaging that you can have with that, you can go from Automation Alley to the middle of nowhere in 30 minutes in this county, which is a really great message. But to your question, that's part of the import of this program, is to talk about, all right, I got a vision for my community. I want this, just like Amy said. There was a great one of her slides that had like a name badge that said something like, I want to be a butcher shop or something like that. So you have a vision to say, take and consolidate the recreation assets out there into something, but how do I solve that problem? You're identifying it. We need more resource help with the state. How do we get more ingrained with questions through DNR, DEQ, through our state legislature, those types of things. This program is designed to have you start to identify the problem-solving mechanism. Oh, okay, here's my vision. How do I get to that vision? So many communities say, well, I want to do this, and then they maybe forget about it, or they refer it to their planning office, but sometimes the solution is right in front of you, so this program is trying to define it. So we always like to get groups out on time. Brooke says, we talk too much, and you should be out making money and dealing with your family. So we got a few minutes left. So I'm going to give you some homework. One more round of applause for Amy, which is wonderful. So we bombarded you with a ton of information today. Too much to absorb, probably. So here's your homework. There's a question that we ask in our group that we started asking 3 years ago. And it's the seminal question of community-based economic development. When an opportunity comes in your door, you ask this question first, always. When do you need to open? That's the first question. Not what building are you looking at. Not, we don't do big box. Not, well, that's not a question, that's a statement. Not any of that stuff. You get to those questions later. The first question is when you need to open. If you ask when you need to open, it sets the time frame upon which you must work to meet that date. So today is June 26th, I think. So 25th? 25th? So someone walks into your office tomorrow on June 26th, and they say, I'm looking at the little store on Dixie or wherever it might be, or on M59, that storefront. I've got a really neat idea. The first question you should say is when you need to open. If they say, you know what, I really need to be open by like October 1st, that's great. October 1st is now your timeline. So your homework is to think about that. Look around your community. When you're driving around, when you're driving home, and you see a storefront, say, you know what, if the butcher shop came there, that'd be really cool. We want a butcher shop, that would be cool. So in your head, or amongst your friends, your colleagues that you work with in your townships and your cities, all right, if that business came in and they said, we need to be open by October 1st, how do we get them there? How do we get them open by October 1st? What do we have to do to get them open by October 1st? It's a great exercise, particularly as community leaders. Okay, that business needs to be on October 1st. Well, we know we've got to go through planning commission, get the site plan if it's that, or we've got to go through, if it's an already existing storefront, we've got certain permits that have to be issued. How do we get them open by October 1st? You walk through that timeline backwards, and you might come up to the point and say, oh, geez, you know what? They're gonna have to get a special meeting. That's fine. As you learn in our next academy session, the perspective of the developer won't care to go to that extra meeting. They won't care to pay the extra fee as long as there's certainty in the process. So your homework between this session and the next is to start to think, okay, what's an example of first question? What's the first question? Gary, how many times am I going to say that for the next 3 sessions?
Not enough.
About 500 times. All right? Here's your other piece of homework. And Amy hit on it like crazy in her presentation. What do you want? What do you want for your community? You want a baseball field? You want a new car factory? I don't care what it is. Now, I'm not going to make you turn anything in. But in the next session, when we have from the perspective of the developer, I might call on a couple of you, say, you know, on your homework, what were you thinking you wanted in your community? Oh, I wanted that really cool wine shop that they have up in Oxford. I want it in my community. All right, so here's the homework. How do you do that? How do you get the wine shop? Waterford, before we started working with them, they're so much better now. I love Waterford. But at first, they said to me, one of our first meetings, not Gary's team, some of the others said, that Matt, listen, in economic development, if you could just bring us some leads, we'll be all set. We'll take it from there. I said, look, that's great, but I don't trust that you know what the first foggiest thing you're doing with them, so that's not going to happen. Because it's not about just bringing leads. No person in the world is just going to bring you leads. If you are attractive as a community in the development side, if you have the vision, if you're broadcasting and communicating that vision so people know you have it, guess who comes to your door? Not me, leads. You have to know how to do it though. So think about, it's not just leads. How do I do that? I want the wine shop. Think whatever you want. I don't care what it is. And think to yourself, do I know how to do that? Amy says, get your zoning aligned. Sure, that's part of it. Are there other ways that you can do that? And then think about the stuff that we talked about today. Okay, I'm a council person, I was elected. I'm the supervisor, I was elected. I want this in my community. Is your staff aligned so that you could even have a conversation to figure out how to do that in your community? Have you ever done a form code? Do you know how to do administrative reviews? Can you put that through from a staff alignment standpoint? I don't want you to do the homework to find the answer. I want you to think, do I even know how to do that? How to bring that to my community? You don't have to be an expert, but it's intended to get you thinking about what we're talking about tonight. So, refresher. What's the most important question? Do you know, what's the most important question? Do you want to open? All right, I want to thank everyone tonight. Do we have the slide that has the dates for the next 3 sessions? Probably not. Do we know which one? Everyone knows that. All right, so next 3 sessions are just like this, except they get a little bit more collaborative. All right, so you'll be answering more things. You'll be using clickers. If you have a colleague in your community that you think needs to be here, tell them, well, it's not that bad. They didn't really yell at us. They picked up other community. So you want to thank you. I wish you well tonight and travel safe.